She was just a young girl, barely 12, with curious eyes that always seemed to be looking for something new, the kind of eyes that noticed little details other people often missed. It was a quiet afternoon, and the soft golden sunlight spilled into the living room, falling on the scattered papers, books, and trinkets that made the house feel lived in and warm. She sat cross-legged on the floor, her small fingers flipping through her mother's old phone, which had been sitting unused on the kitchen counter for weeks. It was an ordinary phone, a little scratched and worn from years of daily use, but to her, it was a treasure chest of unknown stories. She wasn't supposed to touch her mom's phone without asking, but her curiosity had been building for days. She wanted to know more about her mom's past, the time before she became her mother, the time before life became a mix of school, homework, and evening routines. She had overheard her mom talking about old friends and people she once knew, but the names never made sense to her. She wanted to understand who her mom was before she became the person who packed her lunch, helped her with homework, and kissed her forehead every night. As she scrolled through the contacts, her eyes stopped at the very first entry, simply labeled First Contact. She tilted her head, her fingers hovering over the screen. Why was this person the first contact saved? Who were they? And why did her mom never talk about them? The questions bounced in her mind like little sparks she couldn't ignore. Her heart began to beat faster. What if she called? What if it was someone important or scary? But the thought of never knowing was worse. She took a deep breath, convincing herself it was harmless. After all, she just wanted to hear a voice from the past, someone who mattered to her mom. She tapped the number and held the phone to her ear. The sound of the dial tone felt like the tick of a clock, stretching every second into a small eternity. Then a voice answered. It was not the voice she expected. It wasn't warm and familiar like her mom's friends or relatives. It was calm, steady, and surprisingly deep. For a moment she froze. She hadn't imagined the possibility that someone would pick up. Her curiosity had been a gentle flame until now, and it blazed into a mix of excitement and nervousness. She swallowed hard and tried to speak, but the words tangled up in her throat. Finally, she managed a small, timid voice. Hello, this is her daughter? I found this number in my mom's phone. There was a pause on the other end. Then the voice spoke again, this time with a curious tone. Her daughter? Can I ask who this is exactly? She hesitated, then said her name. Her small voice sounded strange even to her ears over the phone, almost smaller than she felt inside. She explained again that she had found the number and wanted to know who this person was. She tried to sound polite, careful not to seem intrusive or rude. She didn't know if she was allowed to ask or if it was even appropriate. But the voice on the other end did not sound annoyed or angry. It sounded interested. She began to imagine what the person might look like. Someone tall and serious, or someone kind with a warm smile. Each thought made her heart race a little faster. She was too young to fully understand why the number was saved or why it mattered. But something about it felt important. She felt as if she had stepped into a story that had been paused years ago, and now she had the chance to peek in. The voice on the other end finally spoke, calm and measured. I remember your mother. It's been a long time. Her eyes widened. She hadn't expected that. She wanted to ask questions, but the words seemed too heavy, too big for her. Still, she felt a strange connection forming, as if this person was a bridge to her mother's past, a past she had only glimpsed in photos and old stories. She took a deep breath and asked the first question that came to her mind. Did she talk about me when she was young? There was a short, soft laugh on the other end, gentle but filled with memory. Not exactly about you, but she did talk about many things with hope and determination. She had big dreams even then. Her curiosity deepened. She wanted to hear everything, every little detail. She wanted to know about the person her mom had been before she became her mother, the person she had seen only in fleeting glimpses. She imagined her mom as a young woman, full of energy and ambition, perhaps facing challenges she could never fully understand. The thought made her feel closer to her, as if she was discovering a new layer of someone she had always loved. Minutes passed, though it felt like hours. She listened intently, hanging on to every word. The voice on the other end seemed to recall memories that were distant yet vivid, speaking with a mix of nostalgia and admiration. She felt proud even without fully understanding why. There was a sense of wonder in her chest, a feeling that she was holding something precious, a secret shared between her and someone who had known her mom long before her. The conversation was gentle but meaningful. She asked small questions about her mom's school days, her first jobs, the people who had influenced her. Every answer added a layer of color to the picture she had of her mother, a picture that had once been simple and now was becoming rich and textured. She imagined the laughter, the struggles, the little triumphs that had shaped her mother into the person she loved so dearly. As the sunlight moved across the living room, casting long shadows on the floor, she realized she had been talking for a long time. But she didn't want the call to end. Something about this connection felt magical, like discovering a hidden door in a familiar house. She felt as though she had stepped into a part of her mother's life that had always been private, and yet it was now open to her. Finally, the voice on the other end said, "You have your mother's spirit in you. You ask thoughtful questions and you listen carefully. That's a rare gift." She felt her chest swell with pride. It wasn't often that someone outside her family recognized her in this way. It made her want to know more, to continue exploring not just her mom's past but the kind of person she herself could become. The call slowly ended, leaving her in a quiet room filled with sunlight. She sat there for a while, holding the phone close, replaying the words in her mind. Each sentence, each pause felt like a small treasure. She realized that curiosity had led her to something unexpected and wonderful, something that connected the past with the present in a way she hadn't imagined possible. As she finally set the phone down, she felt a mixture of excitement and calm. She had opened a door she never knew existed, and on the other side she had found stories, wisdom, and a glimpse of the woman her mother had been. It was a quiet, golden afternoon, but for her, it had become extraordinary, marking the beginning of a journey she had never planned but would never forget. The next day, the girl could hardly concentrate on anything. She kept thinking about the voice on the phone, about the calm, steady tone that had spoken to her with a mix of memory and kindness. She felt like she had stepped into a hidden chapter of her mother's life, and it was both exciting and strange. At school, she found herself daydreaming about that conversation, replaying every word and imagining the person who had known her mother long before she was born. When she got home, the phone still rested on the kitchen counter, silent but full of promise. She wondered if she should call again. She didn't want to seem rude or intrusive, but the curiosity that had pushed her to dial the number the day before was still there. Her mind raced with possibilities. What if he remembered her mother well enough to share more stories? What if he had advice for her, just as he had praised her thoughtfulness before? She felt a quiet determination. She would call again, but this time she wanted to be ready with the right words. Taking a deep breath, she picked up the phone. Her fingers trembled slightly as she dialed the number she had memorized. The dial tone sounded different this time, less intimidating and more like the beginning of an adventure. She waited, her heart beating faster until the familiar voice answered. "Hello? Hi, it's me again," she said, her voice steadier than yesterday. "I'm the girl who called yesterday. I found this number in my mom's phone." The voice was calm, but there was a warmth in it now, as if recognizing a visitor who had returned to a special place. "I remember you. It's nice to hear from you again. How are you today?" She smiled, feeling a little more confident. "I'm good. I've been thinking a lot about yesterday's conversation. I wanted to ask more questions if that's okay." "Of course," he replied. "I have time. What would you like to know?" For a moment she paused, thinking carefully. She wanted to ask the questions that mattered, not just small ones. "Can you tell me more about my mom when she was young? Not just about school or work, but about who she was, how she felt, what she dreamed about?" There was a soft sigh on the other end, and then the voice spoke slowly, with thoughtfulness. "Your mother was one of the most determined and kind-hearted people I have ever met. She had a way of seeing possibilities where others saw obstacles. Even as a young woman, she cared deeply about people, and about doing the right thing even if it was difficult. I admired her for that." The girl's eyes widened. She had always known her mother was kind, but hearing it described by someone who had watched her before she became a mother made it feel real in a new way. "Did she ever talk about what scared her or what she worried about?" she asked. "She did," he said. "She worried about whether she was making the right choices, whether she could live up to her own dreams. But she never let fear stop her. She faced challenges head-on, and she always tried to learn from them." The girl felt a mix of awe and understanding. She imagined her mother as a young woman, full of ambition but also filled with uncertainty, trying to navigate a world that wasn't always kind. It made her feel closer to her, like she was discovering the layers of a person she had always loved but never fully known. As the conversation continued, He shared small stories, moments of courage, laughter, and quiet generosity. He spoke of a time when her mother stayed late to help a colleague struggling with a project, even when she had her own work to finish. He described how she had comforted friends during difficult times, how she had offered advice that changed the course of their lives. Each story added a new dimension to the girl's understanding of her mother, painting a picture of a person who had lived with intention and heart. The girl listened intently, asking questions here and there, sometimes pausing to think of new ones. She asked about her mother's dreams and ambitions, about the people who had inspired her, and about the lessons she had learned along the way. Each answer seemed to deepen the connection she felt, not just with the person on the phone, but with her mother's past, with the life that had shaped the woman she knew. At one point, she asked the question that had been on her mind since the first call. "Do you think my mom made a difference in the world?" There was a pause, long enough for her to wonder if she had asked something too big, too serious. Then he spoke, his voice filled with certainty. "Yes, she made a difference every day in ways you may never see. Sometimes it was through big actions and sometimes through small, quiet acts of kindness. She inspired people, and those people went on to do good because of her. The world is better for having her in it." The girl felt a warm rush of pride. She didn't fully understand everything, but she felt the weight and beauty of those words. Her mother had lived a life that mattered, and somehow through this conversation, she was part of it too. It was as if the connection she had made yesterday had deepened into something more significant, something that carried meaning beyond the phone line. They talked for hours, though it didn't feel like it. The conversation flowed easily, filled with stories, reflections, and moments of laughter. He shared lessons he had learned in his own life, lessons about patience, resilience, and the importance of believing in oneself. The girl absorbed every word, feeling her mind expand with understanding and her heart fill with hope. As the sunlight outside faded into the soft glow of evening, she realized that she had learned more about her mother and about life itself than she could have imagined. The voice on the other end had given her not only stories and memories, but also guidance, encouragement, and a sense of connection to something larger than herself. When the call finally ended, she sat quietly, staring at the phone in her hand. She felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and excitement. Something had shifted. She had touched a part of her mother's past, and in doing so, had discovered a new perspective on her own life. She felt inspired to ask questions, to explore and to understand more, not just about her mother, but about the person she was becoming. That night, she wrote down everything she could remember from the conversation. Every story, every piece of advice, every detail seemed too precious to forget. She imagined sharing them with her mother someday, imagining the laughter, the surprises, and the emotional moments they would have together. For the first time, she understood that some connections, even unexpected ones, could be powerful. A single phone call had opened a door to the past, to wisdom, and to understanding. And she knew, deep in her heart, that this was only the beginning of a journey that would continue to teach her about courage, kindness, and the ways one life could touch so many others. The girl couldn't stop thinking about the phone call. Even as she went about her day, helping with small chores or doing homework, the voice she had spoken with yesterday echoed in her mind. It wasn't just any voice, it was a voice full of stories, memories, and kindness. She felt like she was holding a secret treasure, a window into the life her mother had once lived. That evening, curiosity and courage together made her pick up the phone again. She had a list of questions this time, small notes she had written to herself about things she wanted to ask. Her hands trembled slightly, but her heart felt light. She dialed the familiar number, and after a few rings, the calm, steady voice answered, "Hello?"
"Hi, it's me again," she said, trying to sound confident.
"I have more questions about my mom. If it's okay, I'd like to hear more stories about her." "Of course," he replied. "I'm happy to share. What would you like to know first?" She took a deep breath and asked, what was she like with people she cared about? Was she always strong, or did she have moments of doubt? There was a pause, thoughtful and reflective. She had moments of doubt, of course. She was human. But even in those moments, she showed care and concern for the people around her. She would offer help, encouragement, or just listen when someone needed her. Strength wasn't about never feeling doubt. It was about moving forward anyway. Your mother had that strength. Quietly, every day. The girl smiled, imagining her mother as a young woman, standing tall even when unsure. She pictured her helping others, offering comfort, or simply being there. The stories painted a vivid picture in her mind, richer than any photograph or memory she had ever seen. Encouraged, she asked about her mother's work life, curious about the early challenges she had faced. The voice on the other end spoke with admiration. She was one of the hardest working people I've known. She faced challenges with determination and thoughtfulness. There were times when the work was difficult, and the results weren't immediate, but she kept going. She never gave up, and she always treated others with respect. That made her stand out. The girl listened intently. She felt a sense of pride mixed with awe. She had always known her mother was hardworking, but hearing it described by someone who had observed it long ago made it feel real in a new way. She wanted to ask more, to dive deeper, to understand every layer of her mother's life. Did she ever talk about her dreams? The things she wanted to do or see or learn? She asked, the voice softened. She dreamed a lot. She wanted to make a difference, not just in her own life, but in the lives of others. Sometimes the dreams were big and sometimes small, but every dream reflected her heart and her desire to grow. She had a sense of purpose that guided her even in uncertain times. The girl felt a warmth in her chest. She had never fully realized how much her mother had wanted to do and be. It made her want to learn more about herself, too. She wanted to be brave and kind, like her mother had been. The conversation turned to memories, little stories that revealed the woman behind the mother. He told her about a time her mother had stayed late at work to help someone struggling, even though it meant missing something important to her. He spoke of moments when she had quietly encouraged a friend who was losing hope, or had offered wisdom that changed someone's path. Each story was a small piece of a larger mosaic, showing a life full of thoughtfulness, care, and courage. The girl was completely absorbed. She asked questions about her mother's friends, the people who had influenced her, and the lessons she had learned along the way. Each answer deepened her connection to the past, making her feel as if she was walking alongside her mother through moments she had never known. She imagined the laughter, the struggles, the choices her mother had faced, and felt a profound respect for the life she had led. At one point, she asked the question that had been on her mind since the first call. Do you think she knew how much she mattered to people? There was a long pause, and then he spoke, carefully and thoughtfully. She might not have realized it fully, but yes, she mattered. She mattered in ways that went beyond recognition or praise. The kindness she offered, the wisdom she shared, the example she set, they all created ripples. People carry those ripples with them long after moments have passed. Your mother's influence was quiet but powerful. The girl felt a sense of awe and responsibility. She had always loved her mother, but now she saw the depth of her impact. It made her want to honor that legacy, to learn from it and to carry it forward. She wanted to live in a way that reflected the kindness, determination, and care her mother had shown. The voice on the other end continued, sharing lessons he had learned in his own life, stories of challenges and ways to face them. He spoke about resilience, patience, and the importance of believing in oneself. Every word was a lesson, a thread weaving together the past and the present, guiding the girl toward understanding not only her mother but also herself. Time passed quickly, though it didn't feel like it. The girl felt as if she had stepped into a world of stories and wisdom that stretched beyond her imagination. She learned about courage, empathy, and the quiet ways one life could touch countless others. She felt a growing sense of purpose, an understanding that small actions and thoughtful words could have a big impact. As the evening deepened into night, the conversation slowly drew to a close. She realized she had learned more about her mother and about life itself than she could have imagined. She felt a profound connection, not only to her mother's past but also to the wisdom and care that had shaped it. The call left her with a sense of calm and inspiration, a quiet excitement for what she might discover next. When the phone finally went silent, she held it close, reflecting on everything she had heard. Every story, every word of encouragement, every memory felt like a gift. She knew she had touched something precious, something that connected her to her mother in a deeper, more meaningful way. It wasn't just about learning the past. It was about understanding the strength, kindness, and determination that could guide her own life. She wrote down every detail she could remember, careful not to lose a single story. The page filled with memories, advice, and reflections. She imagined the day she might share them with her mother, the emotions, the laughter, and the shared pride. It was more than a collection of stories, it was a legacy, a bridge connecting generations through the simple act of listening and learning. That night, as she lay in bed, she thought about the lessons she had learned. She thought about courage, about kindness, and about the small actions that could make a difference. She felt a quiet determination to carry those lessons forward, to live in a way that honored her mother's life, and to explore her own path with curiosity and care. The world felt bigger, brighter, and full of possibilities, and she knew this was only the beginning of a journey that would continue to shape her understanding of herself and the world around her. The following afternoon, she couldn't wait to pick up the phone again. Each time she thought about the previous conversations, her heart swelled with curiosity and excitement. She felt as if she had discovered a hidden path into her mother's life, and every story she learned added color and depth to the image of the woman she had always loved. She wanted to continue exploring, to understand the person behind the memories, the one who had faced challenges, made decisions, and quietly influenced the lives of so many. With a mixture of nerves and determination, she dialed the familiar number. The phone rang, each tone making her heart beat a little faster. After a few moments, the calm, steady voice answered. "Hello? Hi, it's me again," she said, her voice firm but soft. "I have more questions and I really want to learn more about my mom. I hope that's okay." "Of course," the voice replied warmly. "I'm glad you called. I always enjoyed speaking about her. What would you like to know this time?" She paused to gather her thoughts, then asked, "Can you tell me about times she faced big challenges? How did she deal with them?" There was a thoughtful pause, and then he began to speak, recounting a story she had never imagined. Her mother had faced a major setback early in her career, a moment when it would have been easy to give up. But instead of letting the challenge defeat her, she faced it with determination and grace. She worked tirelessly, asked for guidance when she needed it, and never let the fear of failure stop her. In the end, she not only overcame the obstacle but also inspired others around her to stay strong and believe in themselves. The girl listened, her eyes wide, imagining her mother navigating those moments. She felt pride and admiration, but also a new understanding. Strength wasn't about being fearless. It was about persistence, courage, and resilience in the face of difficulty. Her mother had embodied all of those qualities, and hearing it from someone who had witnessed it made it feel real and tangible. Encouraged, she asked about other parts of her mother's life, curious about the ways she had touched people and influenced them. The voice on the other end shared stories of kindness, moments when her mother had quietly helped someone in need, offered advice that changed a life, or simply listened when someone felt alone. Each story was small in its own way, but together they painted a picture of a woman whose impact had been profound, even if it had gone unnoticed by the wider world. The girl asked questions about how her mother treated people she didn't know well, wondering if she was always as kind as she appeared. The answer was yes. Her mother had believed in treating everyone with respect and empathy. She had understood that even small acts of kindness could ripple out, touching lives in ways that might never be visible. It was a lesson the girl took to heart, imagining how she could apply it in her own life. They spoke about dreams next, about the hopes her mother had carried and the ways she had pursued them. The voice described a young woman full of ambition, yet always guided by her values. She wanted to make a difference not just for herself but for the people around her. She had dreams that were big, sometimes overwhelming, but she faced them with courage and persistence. Hearing about this side of her mother made the girl think about her own dreams, about the kind of person she wanted to be and the ways she could make a positive impact. As the conversation continued, the voice on the other end began sharing lessons from his own experiences, weaving them naturally into the stories about her mother. He spoke about resilience, patience, and the importance of taking responsibility for one's choices. He shared examples of challenges he had faced and the ways he had learned from them, emphasizing that growth often comes from adversity. The girl listened carefully, absorbing each word, feeling as if a bridge was being built between the past and the present, between her mother's life and her own journey. At one point, she asked a question that had been on her mind for a long time. "Do you think my mom would have been proud of me if she could see me now?" There was a moment of silence, thoughtful and sincere. Then he spoke, his voice gentle but certain. "Absolutely. She would be proud of you for being curious, for asking questions, and for wanting to understand the people and the world around you. She would see your heart and the effort you put into learning and growing. Those are the things that matter most. The girl felt a warmth in her chest that she could not describe. It was like a quiet reassurance, a confirmation that the connection she felt to her mother's past was real and meaningful. She realized that these conversations were teaching her more than just stories. They were showing her how to live, how to face challenges, and how to treat others with kindness and care. They continued talking, exploring deeper topics about values, choices, and life lessons. He encouraged her to think about her own actions, her own words, and the way she could influence the world around her. He reminded her that even small acts of courage or kindness could ripple outward, touching lives in ways she might never fully see. The girl felt inspired, realizing that she too could create a positive impact, just as her mother had. Time passed quickly, as it often does when conversations are meaningful and engaging. The sun began to set, casting a warm glow over her room, and she knew the call was nearing its end. But instead of feeling sad, she felt energized, filled with ideas, questions, and a sense of purpose that had not been there before. As the voice said goodbye, the girl held the phone close, savoring the last few words. She felt grateful for the stories, the lessons, and the connection. She understood that she had been given something rare, a window into her mother's life combined with guidance and wisdom that could shape her own. It was a gift she would carry with her, a source of inspiration and courage. After the call ended, she sat quietly, reflecting on everything she had learned. She wrote down notes capturing the stories, advice, and reflections while they were fresh in her mind. Each sentence she wrote felt important, a way of keeping the memories alive and honoring the legacy of her mother's life. That night, she thought about the lessons she had absorbed, about the courage, kindness, and determination that had defined her mother. She felt a quiet but powerful sense of responsibility to carry those lessons forward, to live in a way that reflected the values she had learned. The world felt more full of possibility, and she understood that her actions, words, and choices could matter just as much as her mother's had. She fell asleep with a sense of peace and anticipation, knowing that her journey of discovery was far from over. There were more questions to ask, more stories to uncover, and more lessons to learn. But she also knew that she had already gained something extraordinary, a connection that spanned time, a glimpse of her mother's strength and heart, and a guide for her own life. It was a quiet evening, yet it marked a turning point, a moment of growth and inspiration she would carry with her forever. The next morning, she woke up with a sense of anticipation. She knew that today could be another day of discovery, another chance to connect with the stories of her mother's past. But more than that, she felt ready to take what she had learned and begin thinking about how it could guide her own actions. The lessons from the previous conversations were alive in her mind, shaping her thoughts, and inspiring her to consider the world in a new light. After breakfast, she went to her room with the phone in her hand. She had a list of questions, but she also wanted to just talk and listen, to feel the connection once more before ending this chapter of exploration. She dialed the number, feeling a mixture of nervousness and excitement. After a few rings, the familiar voice answered. "Hello? Hi, it's me again," she said, her voice steady. "I wanted to share some thoughts and ask a few more questions. I hope that's okay." "Of course," he said warmly. "I've been looking forward to hearing from you." She took a deep breath and began. "I've been thinking about everything you told me about my mom, about the way she faced challenges, helped people, and believed in herself. I want to understand how I can do some of those things too. How can I make a difference, even in small ways?" There was a pause, and then the voice responded thoughtfully. "You already have the ability. You just need to pay attention, listen, and act with care. Sometimes it's as simple as helping someone with a small task, giving encouragement, or showing kindness without expecting anything in return. The world is full of opportunities to make a difference, and every small act ripples outward." She nodded, even though he couldn't see her. His words felt like a map guiding her steps. She imagined ways she could apply them in her life, at school, at home, with friends, and even in moments when no one was watching. She realized that change didn't have to be dramatic or public. It could begin quietly, with thoughtful choices and small gestures. Encouraged, she asked about courage. "How did my mom find courage when she was scared? Sometimes I feel afraid to try new things or speak up." The voice was calm, reassuring. "Courage doesn't mean never being afraid. It means taking action despite fear. Your mother often felt unsure or nervous, but she faced what needed to be done anyway. She understood that growth comes from facing challenges, learning from mistakes and trying again. You can do the same. Take one small step at a time and the courage will grow with you. The girl smiled. She thought about times she had felt hesitant or worried, and imagined approaching them with the same calm determination her mother had shown. It gave her a sense of confidence she hadn't felt before. She felt empowered, not because fear would disappear, but because she now understood that action mattered more than the absence of fear. They talked about kindness next, and the voice shared more stories about her mother's quiet acts that had impacted people's lives in profound ways. There was the neighbor she helped without ever being asked, the student she encouraged when others doubted them, and the colleagues she supported even when it required personal sacrifice. Each story painted her mother as someone who valued empathy, compassion, and integrity above all else. The girl listened carefully, realizing that these were qualities she could practice every day. She asked a question she had been thinking about for a long time. "Do you think people remember my mom now? Even after all these years?" There was a pause, and then he spoke with certainty. "Yes. People remember her because of the way she made them feel and the lessons she shared. Her actions, her care, and her example have lasted far beyond her immediate presence. That is the true measure of impact, how someone touches the lives of others in ways that continue to grow and spread." The girl felt a surge of pride and inspiration. She realized that her mother's influence had shaped not only those she directly touched, but also the people they touched afterward. It was like a chain of goodness and courage extending through time, and now she could see herself as part of that chain. She wanted to honor it, to continue it in her own life. The conversation then shifted to dreams and goals. He spoke about the importance of knowing oneself, setting intentions and pursuing them with care and persistence. He reminded her that mistakes were part of learning, and that patience and reflection were as important as action. The girl listened, imagining herself growing into someone who could navigate life with thoughtfulness, resilience, and purpose. She asked him to tell her one last story about her mother, something that captured the essence of who she was. He spoke of a moment when her mother had faced a difficult decision, but chose to act with integrity, helping others even when it wasn't easy or convenient. It was a small moment in the grand scheme, but it revealed the heart of her mother, someone who lived by her values, treated others with respect, and quietly inspired everyone around her. The girl felt a mixture of awe, gratitude, and determination. She understood that the stories she had heard were more than memories. They were lessons for life. They showed her the power of courage, kindness, integrity, and persistence. She wanted to carry them forward, to apply them in her own experiences, and to share them with others as her mother had shared them. As the sun began to set outside, the conversation drew to a close. She felt a sense of completeness, a quiet satisfaction, and a deep appreciation for the connection she had built. She thanked him for his time, for the stories, and for the wisdom he had shared. He told her she had a bright future and that her mother would be proud of the thoughtful, curious, and compassionate person she was becoming. After hanging up, she sat quietly, letting the words sink in. She thought about everything she had learned, the courage to face fear, the importance of small acts of kindness, the value of persistence and integrity, and the way one life could create ripples that touched countless others. She realized that she had not only connected with her mother's past, but she had also begun to understand her own path, her own potential, and the ways she could influence the world. That evening, she wrote everything down, recording the stories, advice, and reflections. Each sentence felt important, a way of preserving the lessons she had received and a guide for the journey ahead. She thought about the day she might share these stories with her mother, about the laughter, the surprises, and the pride they would feel together. It was more than writing. It was a commitment to honor the life she had learned about and to carry it forward in meaningful ways. As night fell and she prepared for bed, she felt a sense of purpose and possibility. The world seemed wider, brighter, and full of opportunity. She understood that her actions mattered, that kindness and courage could ripple outward, and that even small steps could create meaningful change. She felt a connection to her mother, to the people her mother had influenced, and to the future she herself could shape. She fell asleep with the phone beside her, not for another call, but as a symbol of discovery, connection, and inspiration. She dreamed of the moments yet to come, of the choices she would make, and of the ways she could live with heart, integrity, and purpose. The journey that had begun with a single phone call had opened a door to understanding, growth, and hope, leaving her ready to step into her own story, carrying the lessons and love of the past into a future she could shape with courage and care. The next morning, the girl woke up with a quiet excitement she hadn't felt before. Her dreams from the previous night lingered in her mind, like soft echoes of stories and lessons she had gathered from the conversations over the past days. Each memory of her mother, each word of guidance from the voice on the other end of the phone, had built a bridge between past and present, showing her not just who her mother had been, but who she could be. Today felt like a day to act, to explore, and to see how far those lessons could take her. After breakfast, she sat at her desk with a notebook, thinking about everything she had learned. Courage, kindness, persistence, and empathy filled the pages of her mind, and she wanted to put them into action. She considered small steps she could take, helping someone struggling with schoolwork, listening more closely to her friends, or taking responsibility for a task she had been avoiding. The list seemed endless, but each idea made her feel a little more empowered. She picked up her phone not to make another call, but to write down her thoughts. The phone, once just a device for dialing a number, had become a tool for understanding, connection, and reflection. She typed out her plans, her hopes, and even her fears, realizing that putting them into words helped her clarify her intentions. It felt like planting seeds in a garden, each one ready to grow with attention and care. The day moved slowly but purposefully. She started with simple acts of kindness, noticing how even the smallest gesture could lift someone's spirits. She helped a younger neighbor carry groceries, offered encouragement to a friend struggling with homework, and spent extra time with her mother, listening to stories and laughing together. Each action reminded her of the stories she had heard about her mother, the quiet influence she had on others, and the importance of being present and thoughtful. Later, she revisited the lessons about courage. There had been moments in her own life when she had felt hesitant or unsure, and she realized that those moments didn't need to define her. She decided to take on a small challenge she had been avoiding, speaking up during a group project at school. Normally, she would have stayed quiet, worried about being wrong or judged. But today she remembered her mother's strength, her ability to face uncertainty, and the advice from the voice on the phone. She raised her hand, shared her ideas, and found that not only were they welcomed, but they also helped the group move forward. The experience filled her with a quiet confidence, a feeling that courage wasn't about fearlessness but about action. In the afternoon, she found herself thinking about empathy and listening. She reached out to a classmate who had been feeling lonely and offered to spend time together. They walked in the park, talking about small things and sharing experiences. The girl noticed how attentive listening could make someone feel valued and understood. She realized that these small acts of care, though simple, were powerful and meaningful. They connected people in ways words alone sometimes could not. As evening approached, she returned home with a sense of accomplishment and reflection. She sat on the floor of her room, notebook in hand, thinking about the ripple effect of kindness and courage. Every story she had heard, every lesson she had absorbed seemed to come alive as she applied it to her own actions. The voice on the other end of the phone had been a guide, helping her navigate the ideas and lessons she had been learning, but now she was beginning to see how she could carry them forward on her own. She opened the notebook and wrote a letter, not for anyone to read, but for herself. She described the day, the moments of courage, the acts of kindness, and the feelings that had accompanied them. She wrote about the ways she had tried to honor her mother's life, the stories she had been told, and the advice that had shaped her choices. Putting these thoughts into words made them feel real and concrete, a map she could follow in the days and weeks ahead. As she wrote, she thought about her mother in a new light. She wasn't just a parent who guided and loved her, but a person who had faced challenges, made decisions, and quietly influenced the world. The girl felt a deep appreciation for the life her mother had lived, the lessons she had passed on, and the example she had set. She wanted to continue learning from that example, to carry it into her own experiences, and to share it with others in ways she could. Night came, and the girl sat by her window, watching the stars emerge in the dark sky. Each one seemed to shine like a small reminder of the possibilities in life, of the ways one person could create ripples of kindness, courage, and hope. She thought about the conversations she had had, the the stories she had heard and the guidance she had received. They had shown her that even small actions could matter, that curiosity could lead to discovery, and that connection could change the way she saw herself and the world around her. Before going to bed, she made a quiet promise to herself. She would continue asking questions, seeking understanding and acting with kindness and courage. She would honor her mother's legacy by living thoughtfully, helping others, and embracing challenges with determination. And she would remember the voice on the phone, the stories and the wisdom, carrying them with her as she grew and faced the world. As she lay down to sleep, she felt a sense of peace and purpose. The day had been full of learning, reflection, and action. She had applied lessons from the past to her present, and she felt ready to continue exploring, growing, and making a difference. The journey that had started with a single phone call had expanded into something much larger, a path of discovery, connection, and inspiration that she could follow for the rest of her life. She closed her eyes, carrying with her the strength, kindness, and courage she had learned, knowing that each new day offered another opportunity to act, to learn, and to live with heart.